Hello, hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the show where we talk about the collective card game, where cards are created by the community and submitted and voted on. But today we're doing something special. We're not talking about the submissions. We are talking with Nick, the designer of, well, one of the designers for Odious Studios, the group that made Collective. It is so great to have you joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks.
And of course, as always, we have my faithful co-host Grief joining us.
Howdy, folks. I guess you never imagined
doing things different.
I guess you never imagined me and Nick actually on the same podcast. What will happen?
That's right. Yeah.
And
Stranger
so,
side, can you ban Grief for me from this?
For the next six or so months, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly. Until he starts being more positive. I just can't handle it emotionally.
Have you forgotten what my fucking name is? I'm Grief incarnate.
So, we asked you guys last week to start submitting questions for this special interview section. And a lot of you responded. We might have more than we can get to. We'll see. We'll kind of work with it. I don't have anything better to do today, but we'll figure it out.
My goal is to answer all
he was
the
regularly
questions.
doing. I told him the wrong time.
Yeah, it's just in the middle of the night, so who cares? It's
okay. Now, so a note for those of you who did submit questions. We did combine a lot of things and kind of fix up the wording a little bit. So that's why the names are gone, because it's usually a question that multiple people asked or asked something similar. So the first thing I actually wanted to ask about is we're launching now into season 2 with the new hero Marie. And I know Grief was like ecstatic. He really, really likes her kind of unique play style. I think the whole Summons and Tombs and Actives was really fun. So what was kind of the thought process in adding Marie for the start of season 2?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I guess I would say that really it started with like 6 months ago when the artist Anastasia, we've been working with her for a while. She did like the plush Baluk art. She did she did the redraw of Ashgurdy, and we have another hero art done with her as well. And those pieces were kind of from our old strategy of getting art, which was not commissioning it, but looking at artists on ArtStation and finding people who were not that well known and saying, hey, do you want your art to be in our game? This was kind of from an early idea of Collective, which was like, we wanted to establish that Collective is not actually a game with like a consistent art style, which is something that is kind of a love it or hate it thing about Collective. And this girl, she's like a student in Russia of art, and she was like, really like, she's probably like one of the biggest gets from ArtStation for us. She like, we told her about the game and she like downloaded it, she played it, and then she like made the robot card back art without us asking. And then she was like, do you want to put this in the game? And I was like, yeah, we got to pay you though, and she's just like super passionate and genuinely actually like really likes the game, the idea behind it. And like a lot of artists, I think she's really, really like seeing like her art in a video game that's on Steam, right? She had these pieces. She had the 3 pieces of extra art for Marie, like the 3 level up rewards. And then she had a early drawing of this girl. And so we commissioned a more detailed version of it. And I guess one other thing that was really positive about it is that like when looking up the lore for Marie, so Marie's based on Marie Ledoux, the voodoo, Louisiana voodoo practitioner from like the 1800s, and some of the flavor of like a lot of the stuff she did is based on like us trying to be. We usually try to do this like with Baluk. Baluk is based on Baluk Choptan, the Mayan god. We try to actually like learn about like really what were these cultures like, or that sort of thing. And there's just like a lot there, which is really positive. And one of the main things that I thought was interesting was the modern idea of a zombie is like very different from the actual voodoo or hoodoo, or it kind of turned into a bunch of different belief systems. But the idea of a zombie is actually like a lot more complicated, and honestly, it's like tied in with the history of like North American and South American slavery. The idea of bringing a body back from the dead for it to work for you for it to work for you forever
eternity,
is, this was like considered a punishment. It was like considered a punishment from where it was like, if you were bad, so there's like, the card Cat and Samedi. Cat and Samedi is based on Baron Samedi, who's this figure of voodoo lore, and he's always pictured smoking a cigar with a bottle of rum in his hand, and he's like the guy who can choose whether or not to send you to the afterlife. And if he likes what you've done, if he thinks you're a good guy, then or girl, he will bury you after you die, and then your soul will go back to Africa, where it can live in happiness like forever, essentially. But if you haven't been good, then he refuses to bury you, and you have to walk the earth, and your soul is split in two. Zombie, actually, there's they have a body soul duality, and that's like an important part of voodoo culture. So one idea is like, technically people would sell like the soul part, which was like in a jar, and it would be kind of like a good luck charm. But then the body part is separated from that, and then the body is just kind of like, when you think about it, what the story is telling you is like, if you are, honestly, this was like, this is like probably the most emotionally affected I've been by like reading about lore from, or not lore, like another culture's belief system. The belief system is like, if Baron Samedi thinks that you've sinned, then you have to stay as essentially a slave forever. And so what this means effectively is like, they have a belief system where if you die and you've been bad, then you continue being a slave in America. And if you die and you've been good, then you go back to Africa. So they're literally like, their idea of heaven is not having been brought over to America, to the Americas. And their idea of hell is staying in Americas. So their life is literally, their spiritual belief is that their life is hell. And that the only real hell would be continuing that. So like, after reading that, I was like, okay, among like, I already knew I didn't want to make like literal zombies that came back from the dead. But after reading that, I was like, wow, this is way more like, I don't know, like that really made me feel like, wow, I can't believe that anybody does this, I guess.
Well, that's why you probably chose the route of banishing the units when they basically spiriting them away, so
into the
only
afterlife.
their effect basically is utilized.
Exactly. I mean, most of what Marie did was, Marie Ledoux, most of what she did was she would like provide console to people. And then another thing is that possession is seen as like a good thing in Louisiana voodoo. So sometimes you can talk with spirit, and it can you can take on its soul temporarily. It possesses you, but that's a good thing because it allows you to then speak with somebody who you feel like maybe there's something undone or unfinished. And so this was kind of the mechanical tie-in here, was like, this creature has died, but you get to be possessed by them temporarily. You get some of their abilities, you get to act as them, and then they get sent to a permanent resting place, basically.
That is really beautiful, and I really like how you've woven that through the mechanics. One of the things I really loved about Collective is how you incorporate all these different lores from this different, and for a video game that's just starting out, you guys really like gotten a lot of diversity in kind of the archetypes. We actually had a player ask that because the game is about player creativity, you talked about that. Why are more of the more generalist heroes in like the update changed to fit into a single niche? So like we kind of got Vrick kind of lost a little bit of his old stuff and was forced to play more of this action spamming route, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess probably the actual thing that people wanted to hear was like mechanically, like what was the idea with Marie, and this kind of ties into that. I think like the first 6 heroes we made were basically it was a pretty simple idea of like, let's make an aggro and a control hero in each affinity. And that means that pretty much any card in any affinity has at least theoretically some sort of home. The heroes we made after that were Kyungmi and then Marie. And so Kyungmi was, that was our most like extensive art commission. It was like another person we got from ArtStation, and we did that one from the ground up because I thought it would be really cool if we had, instead of, like, I don't know, you probably heard me say that multicolor heroes are, I think, like creatively not very interesting. So I was like, what if it was a hero that like switched costumes? And that also had to do with an idea of like a hero where they're a impressive and cool person, but not in a role that is maybe traditionally seen in card games. And so we're like, well, she's a fashion model, basically, right? And that's working really well with the upcoming costume that Gentle Cat is working on, which, by the way, like they're really good. You'll be excited to see that.
Okay.
So Marie was, so with all that in mind, we found Kyungmi like extremely hard to balance. You can imagine why. You can also see why that she had all these like, if you read the text for the hero Kyungmi, it's like about as much text in total as like any other 2 heroes added together. So with Marie, I said from the beginning, I want something that's really simple. I basically want a hero that's got one ability pretty much.
Okay.
And Plas said, well, okay, if we do this, Plas basically did the actual like thinking involved, I would say. I think Plas and Alec, usually I'm like the kind of person who is trying to think about the overall idea with something like this, and then I guess the lore and that sort of thing, and getting the art for it. And then Plas and Alec they just play games more, so they understand like what would actually make this dumb idea I had into a fun thing. And so Plas was like, well, the level 2 should just make it so she can survive until level 3. That's basically it. Level 3 is the ability, because if it's a level, if the ability happens at level 2 and we follow the leveling curve that we've been doing for most of the heroes, then it would just happen at level, it would basically be a hero power from Hearthstone. So it's something you build up to, and then you kind of like get to pay off with stuff in your graveyard. And then the level 4 just is like more of the ability. And I think that this and also I think the simplifying so the primary goal of changing the heroes was to simplify them. Actually, just in general, we kind of think that the heroes are mostly too complicated, and I'm always a guy who really, me and Alec have like an ongoing discussion where the two sides of the discussion are Dota balance versus League of Legends balance. And both of these opinions are honestly pretty outdated because neither of us have really played either of these games for about like 5 years. So like I have this I really like Dota's balance in general. I think it's like a really beautiful, incredible design of a game. And it's also, I think, in a way, it's pretty influential on like Collective because it was literally like, just this thing made by the community and that sort of thing. And Dota has a lot of heroes that just do one thing, and that's basically it. And that's, I think, a better system, in my opinion. It's a better system for creating a wide variety of heroes than League of Legends, where heroes basically have an archetype, and it's like, oh, this one is like, it's like Helldem, except the thing you make has unblockable, and it's in mind or something. Like that's not really. It's definitely not what you want when you're like trying to make every hero interesting and you're trying to like market the game, and you only have like 8 heroes and stuff like that. Yeah. That's the whole idea, basically, behind the design.
Okay, so yeah, I kind of see how you're moving with that. Jammy hero, when?
Yeah. Well, JTAD has actually done some art with us, and it's not a hero, but there is a aspect of an upcoming part of the game that will have a wide range of JTAD art involved. So JTAD is not a hero, but Jamie is not a hero, but JTAD's art is actually going to be, I think, integrated into the actual game. And you'll just have to wait to see what that is.
Well, this was a pretty good lead up to our next question from one of our players. With the question of will we ever get heroes or hero skins based off of player created content? Because it sounds like JTAD is pretty close to that already.
Yeah. So so I mean, this will probably go into the final discussion, which is like what direction is Collective going in. And that's like a pretty broad point, but a lot of the roadblocks are like legal or logistical or programming related. But I also think that there's a pretty necessary part of Collective really becoming a large thing. I think that I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I think that's almost impossible to argue is not tied in with like some sort of special relationship with artists that is not the one that we have right now. And part of it is because what we're doing right now is basically like if people are interested in the game or they're just like artists we found, then we like do the normal back and forth thing. And I think that artists are like a really good potential vector for people to actually evangelize Collective. And that's basically been the that's kind of been there's how do I say this? people who are into collective get like really, really into it. But
I can attest to that.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, how many other games with a player base like this have this podcast, right? Like, you know, there's all these like instances of people kind of creating like small cultures within collective, and it's awesome to see. But you know, okay, this kind of goes into maybe this might end up being another controversial thing, but I basically believe that there's a correlation between how good a community is and how much like a cult it is. And, you know, or I should say effective, actually. I had a discussion with somebody about this the other day. I should say, like, the more effective a community is, the more like a cult it is. And one of the things cults need to do is, like, evangelize. And we have this thing where, like, it's kind of similar to what people have said about Trackmania, if you've ever looked at that community.
Yes.
They say we've never lost a fan. Collective, like, if you've gotten a card in the game, you come back. Like, if you stay around for a while and then maybe you leave and then you come back, and people come back like a lot. So I think that the thing with artists is that, like, a lot of them are right now, I mean, I'll go into it in detail, but I definitely think that some sort of program is good, and I can kind of gesture towards some ideas, although I literally like need to get them like approved by like a legal person as well. Like, this whole thing is, you know, like, law is like, it's kind of crazy how many things we can't do because of laws.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. That quote, you take it out of context and it's a lot funnier. Hold on just a second. I'm going to be right back. I need to get some water.
Sure.
Okay, we're back. Couple really quick fun questions. What is your favorite realm other than WanderStar? Or maybe a couple of your favorites.
I guess I like, it changes all the time, honestly. It's like literally based on like which one was I most recently like, whoa, this is cool, or whoa, this is unique. So I guess Karachar. I'm not sure if that's how to pronounce it.
That's how it's said, yeah.
I mean, you guys know that I love being goofy, and I think that first of all, the art is incredible, and just you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! And I guess occasionally Hearthstone have like played with the idea of like just going fully into Bugs Bunny land. I think it's kind of interesting that the first one to do that was, well, I don't know, that this Japanese game did it, but I mean, you could say that it's like that, but I think it kind of goes like the extra amount, and it is just like an aesthetic and an idea that I think, you know, in a, like, if there's some sort of world where a collective has like a room for every aesthetic, that's like, you know, one of the big ones that was not there, and now it's there, and I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, if somebody wants to make a goofy card later, that, you know, this is like the perfect place for it, right?
Yeah, I was actually pushing Shadow Knight to make the realm, but we both realized there was kind of a need for that niche.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite food in the collective universe? So, food card or food or.
Yeah, I don't know. Cosmopolitan pancakes, I guess. I still think it's funny.
Classics. Got to go with the core.
Yeah.
Go with the core.
I mean, it was entirely my idea, but it's also like, I mean, I showed it to a friend of mine, and in America, there's like a restaurant called IHOP, and when you get pancakes, it comes with 4 syrups of like those different flavors, and he thought it was like really funny, and that was kind of where I started thinking, like, you know, what if there was a card game that was not, I don't know, like what if part of our angle is like it's a card game but it's not entirely about dragons, you know?
Yeah. And
Okay. I mean, that's also an option. By the way, are you actually happy with how Realms turned out, or would you actually like to see something different from the community or as the Realm managers in particular?
Okay. Yeah, I think that I mean, Realms was something that I was pushing for a long time. This kind of, I guess, goes into, I think that in general, collective should play to its strengths. And Realms is something where it's kind of an evolution of the idea of just creating a card. And it creates, you know, it's sort of like the end game after you've hit level 60 in World of Warcraft or something like that. Like when people have made a card, there's like this big feeling of accomplishment, but then it's like, okay, well now what do I do? I guess I'll make more cards. And I'm really, it's really cool because like it didn't take that much engineering to do, but it has this like major impact on the, especially the people who like really care about the game. There's like the set of goals that they can fulfill. I think that's really good. And then I guess the other thing that I really like about it is that it was kind of me formalizing something that people were already doing and asking for. And that always feels really good because it's like I didn't even come up with the idea, you guys did. And so for those reasons, it's like very satisfying to me. And the other thing is like I still haven't seen anybody. I mean, I've seen some people submit like, you know, cards that are like, this game is bad or whatever, or Nick made a bad design competition, I think was specifically, like that was literally the name of a card, was like, Nick made a bad DC, just like a frowny face. But like, you know, there's nothing like that with Realms. Like nobody's, it's just like entirely good faith recreations. That's good too. Anyway, this is already going too long.
yeah,
No
no,
problem,
you're
no
good.
problem.
You
Okay.
take this one.
Since we're already slowly heading into the direction of the questions related to the submissions and voting system, there's the last one that's still about Realms. Will restrictions on Realm cards get removed or made softer since we got restrictions on the top 10 submissions anyway?
Yeah, so somebody brought this up, and I think it's actually a good idea. My biggest concern with any sort of we still don't have a term for like the whole democracy thing, but I think that
The collective.
yeah, well, we're the collective lore wise.
Yeah.
But the whole democracy thing, I think the best term we have is democratic process. That's what it's called in the library. The democratic process in general, I want it to be as simple as possible. That video, you know, like we don't really have a thing in game that says like, here's what voting is, here's how voting works. My how to vote video was kind of thrown together because I was like, we really just don't explain this anywhere. And it doesn't even begin to go into Realms. And the explanation of how, like, I think that like, I'm seriously considering cutting it because you guys are already going to be competing over rarities anyway. In general, I guess my first priority really with the democratic process is to try to keep things as similar as possible going forward, because I think that the more I add in little, like we're trying this out this week, it's just annoying, and it often leaves people like unhappy. There's a certain legitimacy to a rule just because it's been there forever, and people are like, okay, well, it's just, you know, we accept this as a rule.
Inertia, it kind of just.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think because this is simplifying things, it kind of overrides the goal of keeping things the same.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not sure. I don't know. But I think that
you've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's recently this cool one of the changes to the text box that people have definitely been asking for was the push on the flavor text off to the side.
Yeah.
With that, there's now opportunity to put flavor on a lot of cards that didn't have it before. So has there been thought about maybe giving an opportunity for the community to do like a mass update to the flavor text or commentary of a card?
Okay.
Oh, that's the look.
Let's. I think the answer to that, I guess, kind of would make more sense related to other questions you're going to ask or stuff I'm going to talk about later.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll get around to that one. You can do the next one, Bree.
So then again, you probably noticed that there was quite the emotional reaction to your top 10 submission changes, especially to the rarities. So are you pleased with the results of players shying away from designing rares after the recent submission changes, or was that a kind of a reaction that you didn't really expect?
Okay. Let me see. I guess I kind of assumed that would be the case. And this is something that Plas brought up in a meeting. And I think that one of the things that we didn't really consider was like the idea of a difference between one rare being allowed a week and two rares being allowed a week is like not double. It's like much bigger than double because having one rare allowed a week means that, you know, like if you see a rare, any rare that week, you're like, is this better than mine? And, you know, people probably often are like,
it changes the mindset. Yeah.
Yes, it is better than mine. And, you know, it's like directly competitive in this way. So I don't even remember if we've announced this, but I recorded 2 versions of the video, of the new How to Play video. And one of them, I say 2 rares are allowed a week. And one of them, I say 1 rare is allowed a week. And that's because I think we're going to change it in like a month. Our idea is generally to like balance things out, but I think we're going to go to 2 rares actually.
So probably with the upcoming season 3 or stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people made kind of like evolving the ideas of Wander Star with like the clattering support or the spiders. What do you think of that kind of them building onto like the Wander Star lore?
I mean, that's great because we came up with the Wander Star lore to intentionally be as generic, as simple as possible, so that everything else would look really out of place by comparison. Like, you know, if we didn't have Wander Star, if the game took place in, like, one of my genuine ideas about this game was to make it so that the whole game was in black and white except for player created cards. That was like an early idea I had, which is sort of, I thought it was a unique idea, but I guess it's basically the idea behind that book, The Giver. But you know, we didn't end up going with that, but you know, the point of the game is kind of be like showcase of your guys' art. If we just had a game where it was like black and white and the base world of Wander Star was just a bunch of like dots talking to each other or something like that, then somebody would make a fantasy realm, and that would be the that would probably be a really popular realm if somebody was just like generic fantasy realm.
Yeah.
And so I guess we thought it makes more sense to have generic fantasy realm as the base and then like add on to that. Certainly is better than like a modern world as the base. That would be really hard.
Yeah.
But you know, that's like, I think that building off of stuff in Wander Star is sort of a natural evolution of us kind of representing some pretty common archetypes in like all fantasy stuff, I guess I would say.
Okay. You can do the next one.
Okay, thank you. So the next user question was also quite a peculiar one because it's one of the topics that you are very vehemently not talking about at all.
Okay.
With the choice with the choice you made of keeping the details of voting obscure and not transparent, what are the pros and cons in your opinion? And since you made that choice.
I mean, we definitely were influenced heavily by Reddit itself. And you can see some really interesting videos on YouTube about how the Reddit voting algorithm works. And they have a lot of systems which are like, fundamentally, they're to try to prevent people from voting badly, I guess. But like one of the things they do is they like literally just like if I have a friend and I've like, okay, if you go to somebody's user page and you vote on something that they vote on or that they posted, it does not count actually. But it remembers that you voted on it and it shows it to you as if you voted on it, but it doesn't actually count that. That's like an example. I mean, I can't say whether we do that or we don't, but we don't do that because that would be equivalent of like, if you type in the URL, then the vote doesn't work. But like Reddit has a bunch of systems like that. In addition, like if I upvote somebody's post 10 times, then my upvotes get worse by like 5%, and it keeps happening. And eventually they are just like, okay, we get it. You like what this person posts, and we don't really care that you like what this person posts. We're trying to find what other people think about what they post, basically. Sort of prevent echo chambers, I guess. I don't know. There's a bunch of algorithms like that, and those are things where like we're interested in them. We haven't implemented, like, those are just two examples, but there's a bunch of crazy stuff that Reddit does that we're interested in implementing. But I think that a lot of that stuff is not even really worth doing until we have a really large number of people voting. But we do have some like secret stuff like that. And the intention of having all these layers of obfuscation like that is basically to try to make it so that people eventually just give up and stop trying to figure out exactly how many votes they got and why. It's supposed to be like a layer of anonymity. It's like you cross in Dark Souls, cross the white veil. Yeah. There's like a level of anonymity there where you're just like, okay, I'm just posting this. Some other people are going to like it or not, and I'm not going to think too hard about why or how, right? And then the voters are like, somebody posted this, whatever. Nobody's going to see what I'm voting, so it's completely anonymous. It's like a good system for making it so that people stay honest with their voting and submission, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, there was also the matter of kind of the other game updates and the transparency on that end. How are you guys planning to approach information transparency to mitigate like player frustration in the future?
Can you think of like an example of
so this? Like kind of how the text change was a matter of like, or the text box changes were just one day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, you've basically talked about it like last year, but post Steam release that never really was mentioned. So I personally, funny enough, the day before you said you had something in mind, I sat in voice chat and told people, oh, well, I could see Nick actually trying to push for the change with the text boxes based on rarity. And it happened.
Yeah.
There was a fallout.
I mean, yeah, and clearly, honestly, like, that's something that I wanted to do for a while, but yeah.
So I think it came off kind of spontaneous. So how do you try to be more open with information, especially with newer folks, that there's emotional reaction of, oh God, they are taking everything that we love away.
Well, yeah,
I
because
mean,
they're invested in this game too, and I even have starting to gotten used to the changes, but a lot of people just feel it was sad.
I think that I guess that like the the first example of like, or well, I think that the principle of like not necessarily telling people or allowing too much input is something that originally, when we started the game, I was like very much against. And I think that it's like, sorry, there's a cat down here I'm petting. It's you know, we've just had like situations where I think probably the biggest like fiasco, I guess I would say, is like the and again, we take the blame for this, but the whole initial rotation thing, which Grief was like very much part of, and that was like something where I mean, I think you can see this sort of thing happen all over the time in real politics as well. Like right now, sorry to go here. This is not going to be like a very politically charged statement, I don't think. It's just like a thing that's happening. But right now, there's a bunch of people vying for the spot of vice president under Biden. And it's something where everybody's saying, like, if he had just made a decision earlier and people just had to live with it, it would have been a lot cleaner. I think that doing it and not giving any warning whatsoever it's arguable whether that was the right decision here. But I think that, you know, a camel is a horse designed by committee, if you ever heard that phrase.
Yes.
Yes.
It, funny enough, even props up in your Steam discussion channels, if you ever looked at that.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah, it's like, yeah. Like, I think, you know, there's like camels are good if you're, you know, doing a lot of different things. But with community stuff, I think that like there's enough situations where I've like waffled back and forth on something and I've been completely open with how I'm feeling about future changes that I kind of realized that it's not really pleasant for people involved. I think that like, again, I think that this is a situation where I talked with people about this for literally like 2 hours, and the tone had changed like dramatically compared to 6 months prior or a year prior or a year and a half prior. I'd had this conversation with a lot of different people, and there's even a poll I posted at one point where I was like, what if I did this? And in the poll I said, I gave a much more generous offer than what ended up happening. I said, we keep uncommons the same font size. We give rares more font size. This is before legendaries. We give rares more font size than they already have, or like smaller font size. And then we make commons bigger. What do you guys think about this? And literally, I think nobody said they were okay with it at the time. This was about a year ago, I think. So the tone had changed really dramatically. And yeah, another thing I think is that we now have like Plas, who does like, I think really good job as a community manager and balance manager and game designer, just a ton of different things, a lot of things that I used to be doing. And then there's a sort of benefit of us having a distance there where it's like once every 2 or 3 months, we maybe do something, and maybe it's something small, maybe it's something like really big, but you know, it's like not from the same person who's been talking to you for the last like 2 months about what to do. Because then you're thinking like, well, you know, should I have not said that thing to that person? That's not really what you want with your community manager, basically. Anyway, sorry. In conclusion, I think that like, I think we were like a little too rash, but I also think that there's like a huge benefit to just doing something and picking the simplest solution. This also relates to like, when I think about like, I don't know what I was thinking with the initial rotation, honestly, because like, just a system that complicated for a thing that we do once that then hangs around for like a year and a half, and people are like, why is this card from week 3 and this card from like week 110 in the same, like, it's baffling, right? So it just was like a terrible idea, honestly. And that's kind of another, that's just something where I sort of realized, like, we want to do what people want, but we also need to make these big, simple decisions in order for people to even comprehend, like, what the hell is going on in collective.
So any other big changes that didn't really backfire in that regard, but were more successful in your opinion?
Like every other big change we've made has been really good, honestly. I think that, like, things that have not been good, I think are these like little features that we add on that nobody dislikes, like, and then like we often like don't commit to them fully. Like I think festivals are probably the best idea of this, and festivals are something we'd like to come back to when we have more time, but they're definitely a like retention related thing. And I guess I had, at the time I had this idea of like, if there's a festival, it was honestly to like work out, like, part of the design of festivals was with the idea of them being ways for us to try out major changes. And then, with the turn structure change, for example, I think that there are some people who disliked it at the time, but something like, 98% positive or something like that feedback on the turn structure change. It's probably the biggest one. But getting rid of ticks, that sort of thing. Like, there's, if there's like, if 100% of people are like, yeah, it seems like a good idea, why not? Then that's not like an exciting or, sort of really big change. If 90% of people are like, this seems like a good idea, and 10% of people are like, no, then it's probably a much better idea than the 100% yes. And if 50% of people don't agree with me, then they just haven't been around long enough. Okay, but that's actually like a funny thing is, like, I don't know, like, there was a long time where people would just be like, what do you mean the game's too complicated? It's not that complicated. And then, like, we did these streams, which I think, I've talked about this before, but the streams were like kind of amazing because there's like a noticeable shift in community feeling after the streams, because people watch them and we're like, ooh, this game is pretty complicated. We did not realize that it was this complicated. And that kind of was, I never thought that would be like the big benefit of those streams, was that players who already played collective would see them and then like start thinking more about what new players think. Mm-hmm. But that's basically the case, and it's like great. It's really good. It's like a really big positive thing. But a lot of this stuff just comes from like being in the game long enough, and like the people who have been around for a long time, it seems like their opinions usually seem to start to align more with mine.
Are you satisfied with the current state of Collective's community and its engagement with the game? About the cult earlier.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied because I want it to get bigger.
Yeah, that's
it. And okay. I think that's a larger question. That's like the kind of thing I'm probably going to talk about more at the end.
Okay. So some people play card games and they're really fond of like limited formats. I know I'm a big limited MTG player in real life. And do you have plans for that particular target group, especially with like the removal of Astral Gauntlet?
Yeah. So this, I think, kind of goes back to one of the themes of like ways that I've been thinking differently about collective recently. I think that we need to play to our strengths. That's like the most important thing. and recreating features that are already in other card games is not a good direction for now. I think that when we started Collective, we thought, oh, if we keep adding features to it, it'll eventually just be like a superset of all card games ever. And then like, why would you play other card games? And like, I think that's an interesting idea eventually. But for now, I think we need to like really make it clear why, like how we're different. And like I said, play to our strengths. And I think that the other thing is that like, I think limited players have a sort of overlap with, I guess I would say like deck builder games are sort of like single player limited games. But with like, they're more dynamic because you're not just doing this like weird 2-phase thing, which honestly is very strange to somebody who's not used to card games. It's like, why am I sitting down for like 20 minutes and thinking about this thing, which I have not playing it, you know? It's like super unintuitive unless you've played a ton of Magic already. So like that's the Sentinels as a mode is basically, I think it just sort of makes more sense with like, for a lot of reasons. Eventually I think a limited mode would be really fun, but also just, you know, the balancing of limited is like completely insane. It's another thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to constructed, where like in constructed, you can literally like have a tournament and you can kind of find out whether the game is balanced or not. And in limited, it's like, you need like 5 statisticians working full time to figure out if a format is good or not. Or you need like, you know, a set of 4 professional card game players playing for like 4 weeks or something, you know. Anyway.
But staying with the topic on formats, you've been very generous with both monetary support and giving DCs to the top 2 tournament winners. Do you plan on continuing to support the competitive scene in this way, or are there plans to shift to certain other aspects?
Yeah, I do want to do that. It's not like a huge cost. And I mean, I think that it's something that, I mean, I did think that it would actually like draw people in more. And it seems like it literally does not. Like there's maybe a incentive of like, I will keep playing and staying up with the meta in order to go to these tournaments. But I think that, you know, it's another thing that I think just makes a lot more sense if you have, you know, 200 people applying, something like that. And the prize pool is like, I mean, I kind of, you know, it's technically, you know, we don't run this thing actually. It is WAG who runs it. But there's a guy who just runs Legends of Runeterra tournaments. He's like the only guy who's doing it. And he like, he had like no concern for the law whatsoever. Like I talked to him about it and I was like, so how are you doing this? Are you like an LLC? And he's like, well, I get the money and then I pay the winners. And I was like, yeah, okay. You know, maybe I'm being paranoid.
Sometimes it's just as simple as doing stuff.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions.
Step 1, get the money. Step 2, pay the winner.
I mean, like, who is he hurting, right? Like, why was, you know, and I talked with like this games lawyer for like this, I don't know, for like an hour. And I don't know, it's like this bizarre thing where it's like, like whether or not something is gambling or a tournament or a test of skill, these are 3 different legal categories. And there's like aspects to it that involve like how much chance is involved and that sort of thing. And I don't know, it's like, it's pretty crazy. And so like, you know, it's
as a
why we decided.
German player, especially regarding card games. I could rant about that topic for days.
Yeah, but you can also like go. You can go to the store and buy a beer, walk down the street with it, and then like go into a building that just like go into a casino, like a tiny little casino, and just like play the slots, right? Like,
Yeah, and we have pretty strict gambling laws to the
yeah,
point where people don't want to go to a tournament for Magic in Germany because we cannot give you cash prize pools. That's why most Magic tournaments in the past, or some Magic tournaments in the past, actually gave you prize support in form of PlayStations or Xbox. That's why you, as a tournament goer, had to sell them post tournament. And how do you actually try to transport them if you're from the UK or from the US? You have to
really.
get a flight ticket back with them.
In my LGS, we just do packs. So I guess these are a bunch of quick one-off questions.
Yeah.
We've been going kind of long. That's fine. We don't have.
Let me. This won't take long. It'll take about. Oh, actually, okay. Hold on. No, I thought I needed to start another pot of tea, but it's actually ready. This will take literally 10 seconds.
Okay, we're gonna pause.
Let's go.
Okay, and we're back. Quick questions. Lightning round. Can we bring back multiplayer bot? People miss it.
It basically helps out people for people to know that someone is actually in queue and
Yeah.
it's not a wasteland.
Yeah, that sounds good. I will tell Alec to do that.
Okay. Next one. Can we change the name on Twitch to Collective Card Game because it's hard to search?
From collective currently to collective the card game.
Add the card game bit to it.
Okay. I don't actually know how that works. I think Twitch uses like the Giant Bomb API or something. Is that right?
I wouldn't. I have no idea.
There was like a long period where people were like, you should get like an official Discord server and a tag on Twitch, and then like Twitch let us get it at some point because like we had been out for like we had been in beta for a year or something. But I think that Discord requires Giant Bomb API or something like that. But Giant Bomb is kind of like the wiki or the most official wiki of games. I don't know. So if somebody wants to do that, or if somebody wants to do that and needs me to do something to help them, I'm like totally fine with that. Yeah.
Can we have the option to add our last opponent as a friend? Because some of these names are hard to remember.
Okay. If people convince me that they're doing that to new players, then yes.
Okay, I think this is getting into the long ones. These are the.
You actually have sponsors for your tournaments.
Oh.
To keep up the prize pools or the lights running.
I think that need more players for that.
Okay.
Which we'll get to later.
Okay, so any plans for the publicity and advertising to bring that back? I first learned about this game, by the way, from Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, so yes, for sure. It's like we try to time it with the season release, but also we didn't really do that much season 2 because we still believe that the opening of the game is not good enough at capturing people, and that's something I'm gonna kind of go into later.
Okay.
Just a second.
So with this thing on, this thing done, and this thing done, we could basically go into. Oh yeah, do you have actually plans on working on or adding towards the current functionalities of the card creator?
That's another. I think I mean, like, what's the biggest mechanical missing piece? It's like replacement effects, right?
Replacement effect.
Cloning.
Yeah.
And Actually, there was a weird
change of control effects.
self-referencing clones, but
Yeah, I mean, like, right.
Owners and controllers.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are like the three remaining things. I just don't really see that affecting our bottom line enough to do it right now.
Okay.
That's basically it. Especially because change of control effects and cloning, those are for like reasons which are complicated and Alec probably can't explain super well, but he understands. Those are like the same thing. I think it's because like when you're making another thing, the way the Collective's engine works is like in order to get to a game state, you literally have to take every step that it took to get to that game state. And then you have to like, in order to make another copy of a card, you have to simulate that card getting everything that has ever happened to the first card. And then you have to figure out like if there's something where it only makes sense for it to happen to one card at once, you have to like resolve those things. I mean, it might be a lot worse than you think. Like it might even the tribal type update thing was like something where it was literally like me and Alec had to talk about like weird programming ideas for like 2 hours and like data structures in order to figure out if it was even possible to do it without having to make everybody rewrite every card's tribal type ever and every tribal type check. And I think what we ended up with was like not that bad, but you still had to rewrite every tribal type check. And there might be some other thing like that with cloning, and then that would be just like really annoying for an effect that basically gets used in like 1 out of every 100 cards maximum. Anyway.
True.
So I think we're finally getting to the end of the thing where you get to say all the things you wanted to save to the end of the thing. What were you saying, Greg?
And now we're getting to the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Is there a set of questions here? I think I like said like these questions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what changes can we expect coming up in August or
this August or the near future?
Near future.
Yeah. Okay. So like, okay. So the big thing that I can't get over like how long my hair is now. I've been wearing hats to all my meetings. I haven't gotten a haircut in like 5 months or something. Anyway, so like I've said this in the feature requests section of the site, but or the Discord. But I think there's like well, I mean, number one, I think that like the game at the beginning does not really capture people when they just like download it, start playing, try it out, that sort of thing. Now, the reason for that is because I think that during a lot of development, we thought we're going to be like a social media driven game that has this like multiplayer component where people can balance it. And, the big crazy idea of Collective and the idea that everybody except the true believers told us was stupid was the idea that people can actually balance things. Like the players could actually like work together and collaborate and like balance a game. And the thing is that like I would say in this respect, Collective has been like a massive success. If you look at the meta in other card games in the last like 3 years, it's been like worse than the Collective meta for like a lot of times. Like they're slower to respond with updates because of all these like bureaucratic restrictions they have. And they're also like thinking about they're basically doing it for you, where the players are just like screaming on Reddit and stuff. And then they have to like devise this like pre-made system that everybody just has to live with basically. And then I mean, you know, this was like also the idea of the lore for Collective is like the idea that there's these people on, there's these kind of like, there's these Feowin on Wanderstar who are like good-hearted furry animals, but they believe that the things that come out of the portals in the sky are given to them by some sort of divine god. It's cargo cult sort of thing. And this is supposed to be a parable for normal video games, basically, where you just kind of have to accept whatever the developers give you. And like, you know, stuff falls from the sky and half the people are like, how could you do this to me? And the other half of the people are like, thank you so much. I knew you would listen to my prayers. And really they're not listening to you at all, you know? And this kind of makes it more of a joke when you realize like you are the guy who upvoted, you know, meme bot 2000, and then it's landing on this planet and the furries are like, oh wow, what is this, these ancient scriptures with this impact font text, you know? That was the idea, at least. We never really got to expand on it that much, but in that sense it's been like a really big success, basically. But the thing you're competing with is like, so let's say Legends of Runeterra, okay? Battle system's really similar to ours. It's, you know, it doesn't really have a very solid single player content section at all. And the thing about Legends of Runeterra, I mean, like, so Maniac Oak, honestly, like the OG, like the hardest, longest staying community member, banned probably a dozen times, completely flies off the handle and then admits it later and is like, yes, I was flying off the handle, I was being very irrational. He set up both of those streams because he was like a moderator in both of their chats, and they're like pretty popular, Slay the Spire and Legends of Runeterra players. And during the Legends of Runeterra stream, which, by the way, like both of those streams were really great. They had like really good criticism, and they were like very positive about the game. They were like, this game is fun. But during the stream, Maniac Oak sent me a message because I think he realized this during the stream and said like, you know, I kind of realized there's literally no way that this guy, Strife Crow, is going to play Collective. Like, it's just not going to happen. And that's because he's a streamer and he's a full-time streamer and he needs to make money. And you can't spend like, you know, a day of your work week playing this game that might just be a dead end, basically. And that's how like a lot of players are as well. It's like, okay, you know, I guess you could try out this multiplayer game and maybe you get into it. But the thing that keeps people is like a community and the feeling of community involved. The thing that keeps people is not like, I want to play this game where the cards are made by a community that I'm not really part of or that I occasionally vote on Reddit. And so that's why, like, if you're in the, like, literally there's almost a one-to-one relationship between being in the Discord and getting like into Collective. And when you get into Collective, you get like really into it, which is a super good sign. Like everybody who like works at, because I work like to pay for this, I like work at tech companies. So does Alec. Companies like startups and stuff, they say like, if you have this product where there's like a small group of people, but they get like really, really, really into it, that's good because all you have to do is make it so that more people do that thing. You know, you just need to communicate whatever it is that they see that other people don't. And I think that that's kind of the thing that we haven't been doing. I think that a lot of what we've been doing is like adding features because, I mean, a lot of it actually has to do with like directly listening to player requests and saying, you know, people saying like, hey, I want this thing, I want that thing. What if you had this? What if you had that? And a lot of those ideas are basically things that already exist in other games. With some things, I'm like opinionated on them enough to say no very early on, like multicolor heroes. That's something where it's kind of an obvious design idea. And for that reason, it like kind of annoys me. Mm-hmm. But other ideas like limited, I'm like, yeah, I like limited. That sounds fun. We do it. And then we realize like, you know, this isn't the thing that changes. Like, you know, this isn't the big thing, right? It's not part of the big thing. It's not one of the 5 big things that changed Collective. It's just another feature in Collective, which is also in every other card game. So one of the biggest things that like one of the so basically like, okay, the overall strategy of like making a multiplayer game that has the community aspect. I mean, I think it's possible. It's possible we could do that, but we basically would need like a gigantic budget that Legends of Runeterra had, because Legends of Runeterra has, as a streamer, which by the way, in my opinion, is like almost the only kind of marketing that exists in video games today. Like, I don't really believe in video game journalism as a way to actually get views. I'm literally, I don't know. I talked with a PR firm, and the guy like literally, I talked with a handful of PR firms, and some of them were like, yeah, we can get you like on Polygon. I know a guy at Gamma Sutra and stuff like that. And then like I talked with another PR firm, and halfway through the call, the guy was like, look, man, just don't pay a PR firm. We are all scamming you. This is complete nonsense. You literally get 100 views on a Polygon article. It's a dying industry. You got to get out now. Like, whoa. I know. I was like really, I don't know. And I think that there are ways to, I think that there's PR firms that have like ways to make you like become popular, but it's got to be like part of a strategy. Like if you just get an article on GameSpot that's like, you know, this new MOBA is by the guys that brought you Legends of Azeroth to Reawakening. Like that literally just doesn't do anything, right? If you just have like a smattering of things like that, it's just sort of like going through the motions, but not actually doing the thing that matters. Anyway, so like you need a huge budget, because like what you really want is streamers who look at it and say like, you know, they are business people. Like they work a job and they are looking at a new card game, and they're not just playing it to see if it's fun. It's like, is this fun enough that enough people will play this, that I can play this regularly, and it's also something where I feel like I could get good enough at it for this to really, you know, help my career out as a streamer, basically. And there's a handful of people who don't have that kind of attitude, but they stream like maybe 2 hours a week for fun, basically. The people who stream really seriously don't do that. And so like, I think that the original idea we had for Collective, like it's kind of hard to remove yourself emotionally from a project like this, especially when not only have I put like a lot of time into this, but like, you know, Alec, best friend, has put like so much time into this and worked so hard. And when you are looking at something like that, it's hard not to be like, well, you know, there's something, you know, we did something wrong or something like that. But I think that the original plan kind of can't work because of that, because basically you can't really market the game that way. And the good news, I think, is that there are some things that I can think of that seem like ways that it can work. I think the most obvious is that like, if we have a very solid single player experience, like Sentinels, but you know, if we had like, okay, so, you know, imagine this for me, because I'm not gonna promise any of this, but imagine that there's like a Slay the Spire where you not only vote on the cards and that sort of thing, but people are like making new expansions for it that are like tied together mechanically and have this art together. And also there's like small events that you go to where you meet like a little like, there's an event where it's like a shadowy robot figure in the corner asks you, do you want to draft from the future? And then you get to draft Reddit cards, or do you want to draft from the past and you draft legacy cards? Or, there's another guy who's like, I'll let you use a card from your card creator or something like that. Those are some like ideas of this thing where like you have this thing where people play it and they're not like, okay, this is literally like a hobby on the scale of Magic that I'm going to get into. It's just a game like Slay the Spire. It's like 20 hours or something. Like, somebody who plays Magic all the time will play Slay the Spire for like 10 or 20 hours. They will not play Legends of Runeterra for 10 or 20 hours because, like, why would you? It's not Magic and you're a Magic guy. And same thing with Hearthstone and et cetera, right? Like those Hearthstone people, if they decide to move off of Hearthstone, it's like a decision they spend years thinking about. And they're like, I've decided, like Brian Kibler, he's like, I've decided I'm not playing Magic, I'm playing Hearthstone now. It was like a big deal. I think it was Kibler. Anyway, so, it's something that you can try out. And then another thing is that like, this is kind of the big idea with voting for me, was like, if I saw, like, if we could get, I don't know, Kripparrian or something, and I'm like not a huge Kripparrian guy, but like if we could just get like some popular guy to play collective for an hour, then during the course of just the tutorial, which by the way, we're like cutting out the cutscenes in the tutorial. That's another thing we're doing. The overall plan is like, we cut out like almost all the cutscenes in the tutorial, maybe have that as part of other lore elsewhere, maybe bring them back if you want at some point. But we're like kind of getting the tutorial like super fast. And then the idea is that it kind of feeds into it. Like there's like a cutscene at the end, which Harley did a really good piece of art for. And then it says like, okay, now you're playing the roguelite mode where you're kind of like going to learn the mechanics of the game through this single player stuff. So every one of those tutorial levels, there's a vote at the end of it. And then every level after that, it can be like pretty quick. There's these little events. And at the end of every one of those, you vote on a card. And you can't not vote. And for people that want to know why you can't not vote, it's because I want to see, like, even if I don't like the streamer, I want to see some guy, presented with a card. They're like, here's this card. Yes, no. And they're like, whoa, okay. I don't know.
Try to come up with an idea.
Yeah, right? Like that is, yeah, basically that's like a unique experience, I guess. Sorry, am I going too long?
No, this is good.
Okay. I'm almost done. Like that's why you can't not vote is basically because not only for like a streamer like that, but also like for a new player, we want to tell them like, voting is something that's like a major part of the game. You do it and you should, everybody basically deserves to vote, even if you don't think you deserve to vote. I think that's another big part of it is like a lot of people, they see the ability to vote and they're like, I don't really want to like commit to that. And so this sort of forces them into it, which gives them more like investment in the actual game. That's a big appeal there. Anyway, that's like the single player part of the thing. And then I think the only other thing there, I guess, is that one of the things I'm really thinking about recently, because we're like pretty solid on a lot of those plans, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out by season 3, but it's like a very big change, and I'm not, it's a lot of work, but something like that is what we're hoping to get out for season 3. Maybe it's season 4. Maybe it's halfway through season 3. I don't know. But the other thing that I kept thinking is like, I think that we've tried and not had a great time marketing towards people who play tons of Magic and Hearthstone. And I mean, literally yesterday, this guy, Mystic Quester, who's like a new player, talked to me about the game and said he or she really likes it, and that they've never played a card game like this before, but they just find it like really interesting. And you know, I think that especially like, you know, I think that one of the things that we have going for us is that like we are not just fantasy, have all these different kinds of things, you know, kinds of different aesthetics. I would really like to see like a Lisa Frank Hello Kitty style realm, by the way. Like that would be the dream. You know, like something where we have a lot of different possibilities there. And I think that like a broader audience seems like a better strategy to me. It's probably going to be a little difficult to get them to like try a card game, but I think once they do, they might like, you know, kind of be introduced to this world as like really new, they hadn't thought of. And then I think that I don't know exactly what the plan is, but there is something we've got to do something with artists, I think. And I think that I'm literally talking to a guy after this call, but I'm talking to him about potential ways that we can do something with artists that's not just commissioning pieces from them. And the best thing about the single player experience is that we get to control the content to the point where we can actually make it so that a person who has not played a card game before can pick it up and basically start playing and not be confronted with, for example, any card that has more than like 4 words on it for the first like 45 minutes of the game. Like that's great. That's like a huge benefit, and it's really, really good for people who have never played card games before. And I honestly don't even really see much of that in like Magic. I mean, I see it in Hearthstone, for sure. Hearthstone is kind of designed with that, but they kind of have this like very narrow band of complexity that's like narrow enough that almost anybody can play it and have a really good time. And, you know, we have the ability to, with dedicated single player content, we have the ability to like really, you know, bring it in a billion different directions, which I'm all really excited about. So that's it. That's the pitch.
Okay.
Sounds really nice, and I think many people were actually hoping to hear something like that with a more dedicated focus on single player, less than multiplayer. And this may sound a little bit harsh, but I think over the last 2 years, we all kind of noticed that multiplayer is not really the direction that functions currently.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
I've only played like 5 multiplayer games, so
yeah,
it was never really my scene. But it's definitely good to see that you guys are giving some thought about, you know, the different people playing the game and trying to acquire new players. I think we all agree that that's important. Part of the reason I actually made the show was to make sure everyone got a chance to be in the spotlight, including those new designers, and to kind of bring them into the fold. And so it's good to see that we although we might have disagreed on maybe a couple of the changes in the past or whatnot, that we still have this. You say cult, I say family.
That's right. Oh, ooh, family is worse though, right?
Well, not for me, but I don't know.
But when somebody that's not a family, who you're paying money to, tells you that you're part of their family, I mean, at best, they're stealing your money.
Okay.
Right? But it could be a lot worse than that, right? Yeah. I guess in order to really be a good cult, I have to start saying we're not a cult. That's like step 1 is I have to.
Yeah.
That would be a good advertising campaign. We're
That's
not a
probably,
cult.
It's probably worked its way into the video description by now.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. I you know, I've been talking like a ton, so I really appreciate, you know, space to do this. And obviously I had a lot of stuff I wanted to, you know, talk about. And so thanks for this. And also like, you know, thanks for making this show. It's awesome. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Like I like what other you know, is there like a weekly Dwarf Fortress podcast? Like, you know,
Which is not the most important question of all. Do you watch the show?
Okay, this is all right. Let me actually, because I think this is probably the best like explanation. Like, I really like everything about the community. It's really awesome, and it also is like literally just the most stressful thing that I guess the last thing, the last thing, and I really don't ever say this, but you know, whatever. I'm just being completely honest on this one. Like making this game is by far the hardest thing that I have or ever will do. It's completely insane. Starting something like this means you don't have any weekends anymore. You don't have, like, I'm like hanging out with friends and it's like 10:30 and I've had like 3 beers, not now because of quarantine and stuff. There's even more concentration on this, but like, and I'm hanging out with friends and I've like, I remember times when I've like been hanging out with friends. I've had like 3 beers. I get back at like 11:30 and I'm like, okay, well maybe I can like get some work done or something until I go to sleep at like 1 or 2. Like this is really, really, really hard. And the community as a whole is like, it's really fun to see it thrive, but it also is something where like when I was posting regularly, it was just like constantly in my mind of like, is this the right thing to do? Is this, you know, what should we be doing differently and that sort of thing. And I think that like started posting a lot less around like 6 months ago in Discord, and like the distance really helps a lot, and it really helps me like try to think about like the state of the game and like what's going well and what isn't. It's just like impossible to get out of the mindset of like, you know, if you're in this thing and you're like talking about it to people constantly, it's really hard to get out of the mindset of like, what if this small change that, you know, this person does, what if I combine it with this other change? I don't think I would have been able to get the distance to say like, you know, we need something like really solid single player content that's like very focused and very easy to like ease you into it. I don't think I would have gotten that if I hadn't done this. Alec has basically never posted regularly, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he was like, I mean, I think it was around the time when we stopped doing the weekly streams that Alec was, I think it was a little after or a little before that, but that was around the time when he was like, okay, we're doing the turn structure change and I don't care what people say, like it's going to be better. And he was right. But that's the sort of thing where like, yeah, if you're focused on the small stuff, it's really hard to see the big picture. And like basically literally everything about the community is something where it just makes me really stressed out. And it's like an involuntary reaction, honestly. So I really like this because it was like a conversation.
Yeah.
Or you know, it was like a monologue. It was me monologuing.
It's okay.
But yeah, this was like very good. And no, I don't watch the show. I try to avoid like anything except I basically try to avoid like right now I'm trying to avoid things that aren't thinking about the single player thing, basically.
Yeah, it's yeah, okay, fair enough. Forgive you, I guess.
I mean, like, I don't know like what I don't have a person to compare myself to as well, right? Like,
no, you're pretty fine. I mean, from all the guests we have, like only 2 or 3 answered that they actually watched the show beforehand.
Yeah, it's a running joke.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay. Well, the thing is that, you know, this is a great way to get people to watch the show because I'll probably watch it now, right?
Yeah, so I think it's about time we wrap things up. We've been going at this for a while. Thank you, as always, to Grief for sticking it out with me. He actually compiled the list of questions so that I didn't have to. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you, of course, to Nick for joining us today. It's been super fun. I learned a lot. Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, thanks so much. This has been really good. It's like going to therapy.
It was
All right.
nice having you here.
So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe to remind me why I'm doing this. And keep playing collective and executing your democratic right to vote.
That's
Bye.
right.
Bye, folks.